Hey there, friends watching this right now. My heart's heavy as I start this story. Just last week, my doctor sat me down with that look. You know, the one that says the news isn't good. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He told me I won't make it to next summer, but before I go, I've got to share something with you. It's a story of pain, shame, and yes, rising above it all. A little girl, hurt by someone who should have protected her, nearly gave up on life, but found a way to keep going. I'm telling you this because I know so many of you are carrying the same kind of hurt, suffering quietly, thinking there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There is, y'all. There really is. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. It'll lift my spirits in these tough days. And hey, if you could hit that like button, it'd mean the world. I'm Emma Louise Carter, 75 years young, calling Brunswick, Georgia, home. Folks around here know me as Nurse Emma from Memorial Hospital, though I hung up my scrubs a while back. I spent my life as a floor nurse, learning on the job how to recommend aspirin for headaches, antacids for upset stomachs, or the right ointment for a scraped knee. Funny thing is, all that know-how can't help me now. I grew up in a little wooden shack in Willow Creek, about 5 miles outside town. Dirt floors, a leaky roof that let you count stars on clear nights. It was just me, my mum, Sarah, my grandma, Ellen, who could barely walk because her legs were so swollen, and my grandpa, Henry, who ruled the house with an iron fist. My dad, he split before I was born. Mum was just 15 when she got pregnant, and he, some guy in his 20s, wasn't about to stick around for diapers and responsibility. She moved back in with her parents, carrying the kind of shame that weighed heavy in those days. Grandpa Henry was a big man, all muscle and scowl, with eyebrows that knit together when he was mad, which was pretty much always. He worked long hours at the paper mill, coming home reeking of sweat, wood pulp and cheap whiskey. "You made your bed, now lie in it," he'd sneer at Mom, especially after a few drinks. "You brought this kid into the world, now deal with it." I grew up hearing I was a mistake, a burden, a weight my mum had to carry. She never talked back. She'd leave at dawn to wash clothes for rich folks, coming home with raw hands and a tired soul, too worn out to smile. Grandma Ellen was kinder when Grandpa wasn't around. She'd tell me stories, sing old hymns, stroke my hair until I drifted off. But the second she heard his boots on the porch, she'd shoo me to my room and go quiet. "Respect the man of the house," she'd whisper, like it was a rule carved in stone. She taught me to read in secret, scratching letters in the dirt with a stick, wiping it clean before Grandpa got home. "Girls don't need school," he'd bark. "They just get ideas and end up like their mother." Our house was tiny, 2 rooms, that's it. The living room doubled as a kitchen, with a wobbly table and a wood stove in the corner. We all slept in one bedroom. Mum and me on a mat on the floor, my grandparents on a creaky bed made of old wood. The bathroom, an outhouse out back that stank in the summer and overflowed when it rained. We ate what we could, beans and cornbread most days, maybe fish if a neighbour shared. Meat was rare, usually just a strip of jerky Grandpa brought home after a bender, like some kind of apology. Life was tough, but we made do. Mum took on extra cleaning jobs, scrubbing floors, washing linens, whatever paid. I learned early to cook, clean, iron. Grandma's health got worse every winter, her breathing laboured, her legs too swollen to carry her. Grandpa? He was always hard to live with, quick to yell, quicker to hit. Mum caught it for anything. A bland meal, a wrinkled shirt, or just looking at him wrong. I learned to hide when I heard his steps, my heart pounding when his voice got loud. Things changed when I hit 12, and my body started to change too. Grandpa's eyes lingered in a way that made my skin crawl. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was something darker, something that made me feel wrong just for existing. He'd mutter things as he passed by. "Turning into a woman, huh?" Or, "Look at you filling out." Grandma saw it. One day she pulled me close, her hands shaky, and whispered, "Don't be alone with him, sweetheart. If your mum's not here, go to Miss Clara's house. Make any excuse, just go." I didn't fully get it, or maybe I didn't want to, But I started avoiding home when Mum was out. I'd linger at school, helping the teacher sweep the classroom or offer to babysit for neighbours, anything to stay away. But one Saturday in October, Columbus Day weekend I'll never forget, it was unavoidable. A storm rolled in, turning the streets into rivers of red mud. Mum was out delivering laundry to a farm 3 miles away, not due back until Sunday. Grandma was burning up with fever, barely conscious. I was tending to her, pressing cool cloths to her forehead, spooning water into her parched mouth, whispering every prayer I knew. Then the front door slammed. Grandpa was home early from the mill, soaked from the rain, already stinking of whiskey. "Where's my food?" he bellowed. "I'm making it now, Grandpa," I said, hurrying from the bedroom. "I was helping Grandma. Her fever's bad." He fixed me with a look that stopped me cold. "Your grandma's half dead anyway. I'm hungry and freezing. Fix me something." The way he said it, the way his eyes raked over me, sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with the storm. I mumbled about starting a fire for cornbread, trying to slip toward the kitchen. He grabbed my arm hard. "The fire I want ain't the kind you light on a stove." What happened next was a blur, yet it felt like it lasted forever. He dragged me to the bedroom, threw me onto the mat where I slept. His weight crushed me, the smell of whiskey and sweat choking me, the pain ripping through like it would break me in two. I screamed, begged, called for Mum, for God, for anyone. Then, out of nowhere, Grandma was there. That frail woman who couldn't even walk to the outhouse stood in the doorway, clutching the wooden St. Michael statue from our little altar. "Get off her, you monster!" she rasped, her voice weak but blazing with fury I'd never heard. Grandpa laughed, like she was nothing, and kept going. Then the door burst open. Mum was back, drenched from the rain. The creek had flooded, blocking her path to the farm. She stood there staring at the scene, her eyes wide with horror. What happened next changed everything. Mum, who never raised her voice, who took every insult in silence, let out a scream that didn't sound human, a cry full of 20 years of pain and fear. She lunged at Grandpa like a mother bear protecting her cub. I need to pause here, folks. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. It means so much to know you're out there. Hit that like button, maybe subscribe if you haven't already. Every notification feels like a warm hug, and trust me, I could use all the hugs I can get right now. So where was I? Oh right, Mom charging in like a force of nature. She leapt onto Grandpa's back, that skinny woman who spent her days scrubbing clothes. Her nails dug into his neck, drawing blood. He let go of me, cursing, thrashing to shake her off, but she held on, fierce and unstoppable. "You let go of me!" Grandpa Henry roared, thrashing like a cornered bull, trying to shake Mum off his back. I scrambled to the corner, clutching the scraps of my torn clothes, my body aching like it had been run over. He finally threw Mum against the wall with a thud that made my heart stop. She hit the floor hard but got up, her eyes burning with something I'd never seen before, not fear, but a fire that seemed to come from somewhere deep and unstoppable. Grandma Ellen stood by the door, still gripping that wooden St. Michael statue. Grandpa didn't notice her. He turned on Mum, yanking his belt free, his voice like gravel. "You'll learn what happens when you stick your nose where it don't belong." That's when Grandma, frail as she was, barely able to stand, swung the statue with a strength that had to come from above. The crack echoed, sharp like a branch snapping in a storm. Grandpa froze, stunned, then collapsed like a cut tree, knocking over the rickety table as he went down. Silence swallowed the room. All I could hear was the rain pounding the roof and our ragged breaths. The three of us, me, Mum, Grandma, stared at Grandpa's body sprawled on the dirt floor, a trickle of blood seeping from his head, mixing with the dust. Is he dead?" I whispered, my voice barely there. Mum crept toward him, cautious, like he might spring up any second. She knelt, pressed her fingers to his neck, then looked at us. her face torn between shock and relief. He's breathing, but he's bad off. Grandma dropped the statue, her legs giving out as she slid down the wall to the floor. If he wakes up, he'll kill us all, she said, her voice steady in a way I'd never heard. Sarah, you know what we got to do. Mum and Grandma locked eyes, a silent agreement passing between them, no words needed. Mum nodded, took a shaky breath and turned to me. Emma, go to Miss Clara's house. Tell her you're scared of the storm, that we sent you to stay the night. Don't say a word about this. If anyone asks about Grandpa, say he left before the rain got bad and hasn't come back. But what about you and Grandma? I asked, my heart racing. What are you going to do? The less you know, the better, Mum said. Trust me, sweetheart, go. I looked at Grandma, hoping she'd tell me to stay, but she just nodded. So I ran out into the rain, mud sucking at my shoes, water soaking me through. Miss Clara's was the closest neighbour, but it was still a trek. When I got there, shivering and dripping, I must have looked like a drowned kitten. Lord, child, what happened? Miss Clara asked, pulling me inside. I stuck to Mum's story. Scared of the storm, leaky roof, sent to stay the night. She didn't pry, just handed me dry clothes from her grown daughter's old wardrobe and a steaming bowl of chicken and dumplings. She set me up on a mat by the wood stove, embers glowing warm. I barely slept, haunted by Grandpa's weight, his stench, the pain. I kept seeing that statue crack against his skull, the blood pooling. What had Mum and Grandma done after I left? By morning the rain had stopped and a weak sun peeked through the clouds. I thanked Miss Clara and trudged home, each step heavier than the last. When I got there, Mum was sweeping the yard like it was any old day, her face calm, almost peaceful. She saw me and gave a small, tired smile. Morning, sweetheart. Sleep okay at Miss Clara's? I scanned the yard, the house. Everything was too clean, the floor scrubbed, the table upright, no trace of blood or struggle, no Grandpa. Where is he? I asked, barely able to say it. Your Grandpa? He's gone, left for good, Mum said, her voice firm, final. I knew not to push. Inside, Grandma was in bed, clutching her rosary with trembling hands. She beckoned me closer. Emma, she whispered, no one's going to hurt you in this house again, never. Her eyes held a promise, and I knew somehow Grandpa was gone for good. Mum sat us down in the bedroom. What happened last night stays here, she said. To everyone else, your Grandpa ran off, just like your dad did. Chased some woman in another town. Got it? I nodded. And if they ask why he didn't say goodbye or take his stuff? Grandma chimed in. A man set on running off don't pack a suitcase. He just goes. That's the story. That afternoon, Mum gathered Grandpa's few clothes and burned them in the backyard, saying it was to clear out bad luck. As the flames died, she tossed salt on the embers, muttering something, a ritual to bury his presence for good. Neighbours started asking, of course. Mum spun the tale with such conviction, I almost believed it myself. Some young thing at the mill turned his head, she'd say, dabbing at dry eyes. Men his age get foolish, chasing dreams and leaving their families behind. Folks nodded, unsurprised. It wasn't the first time a man had up and left. No one dug deeper, just offered help if we needed it. Days passed, and Grandpa's absence didn't leave a hole. It brought peace. No more shouting, no more fists, no more fear. Our little shack felt bigger, brighter, like a cloud had lifted. For the first time I heard Mum hum while scrubbing clothes. Grandma smiled openly, no need to hide. My body started to heal, but my soul, that was slower. Nightmares woke me, his weight crushing me again. I flinched when men got too close. The smell of whiskey turned my stomach. One night after we cleaned up dinner, Mum sat me down on the edge of the bed. Emma, we got to talk about what happened. I know it hurts, but keeping it inside is like letting rot set in. It'll eat you up until there's nothing left. I broke that night, really broke, sobbing, loud and raw, letting out all the fear and shame. Mum held me tight, letting me soak her shoulder. "It wasn't your fault," she said over and over, like a lifeline. "He was the monster, not you." After the tears, a quiet settled in, like the calm after a storm when you can just make out a patch of blue sky. "What happened to him?" I asked, finally brave enough. Mum paused, staring at the wall. "He's gone, Emma. He won't hurt us again, and he won't face jail for what he did. That's all you need to know." Years later, when I was grown, Grandma told me the truth on a feverish night when she thought her time was up. After I'd left, they tried to help Grandpa, not out of care, but to avoid a murder charge. He didn't respond. They sat up all night, watching his body, praying, debating. At dawn, when the rain slowed, Mum took the wheelbarrow we used for firewood. She hauled him to a deep part of the creek, swollen from the storm, tied rocks to his hands and feet with wire and rope, and said a prayer, not for him, but for the water to carry him far away. By the time the creek settled, he was gone, no trace left. The creek must have swept Grandpa Henry far away, maybe all the way to the ocean, or buried him deep in the mud. Nobody came looking. Back then, in a small town like Willow Creek, a man skipping out on his family was just another Tuesday. If anyone at the mill thought his vanishing act was odd, they didn't bother knocking on our door. For almost a year it was just the three of us, Mum, Grandma and me. Money was tight, life was tough, but there was a quiet peace in our little shack. No more fear, just respect and even a few moments of laughter. Grandma Ellen poured everything she had left into me. Herbal remedies, old prayers, blessings passed down from her mother. Mum kept cleaning houses for the wealthy farmers, but now she walked with her chin up, no longer dreading what waited at home. I went back to school and my teacher, Miss Eunice, noticed I wasn't the same chatty girl anymore. I'd turned quiet, jumpy, always looking over my shoulder. She tried to get me to open up, but that secret was buried deeper than Grandpa's body. I couldn't let it out. Not everything was smooth, though. Small towns love their gossip, and whispers started swirling. "Funny how Henry just up and left without a word," folks would mutter. Suspicious glances followed Mum at the general store, sneaky questions about when we last heard from him. It was like the town itself was closing in. One night, after a dinner of cornbread and beans, Mum dropped a bombshell. "We're leaving," she said. "This place don't want us and we don't need it." "Where to?" I asked, my stomach knotting at the thought of leaving the only home I knew. "Savannah," she said, her eyes sparking with a fire I hadn't seen before. "The city where nobody knows our story, where we can start fresh without this weight on us." Grandma, weaker by the day, just nodded. "It's for the best," she said. "Here, the walls listen and the tongues never stop." So, one morning in March 1964, right around when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, we packed what little we had: worn clothes, a few pots, Grandma's old mattress, and a small Virgin Mary statue from her baptism. A kind neighbour lent us a cart to haul it to the bus station. We left behind the shack, the yard where I'd played, the apple tree heavy with fruit. We left the nosy neighbours, their questions, their whispers. We left the creek that carried away Grandpa and that night of horror. At the station, Mum bought 3 one-way tickets to Savannah. As the bus pulled away, I pressed my face to the dusty window, watching Willow Creek shrink until it was just a smudge of wood and earth. My chest tightened, half relief, half fear of what was next. "Don't look back, Emma," Mum whispered, squeezing my hand. "The past is done. From now on, we look forward." Savannah was like stepping onto another planet. I'd never left Willow Creek, and suddenly I was surrounded by honking cars, tall buildings, and people rushing everywhere. My small-town eyes couldn't take it all in. We spent the first week in a cramped boarding house room near the port, the 3 of us squeezed into one bed, sharing a bathroom down the hall. Mum found work on day 2, cleaning for a rich family in the historic district. She'd bring home leftovers, sometimes even clothes that fit me. But Grandma's health tanked. The city's humid air mixed with factory smoke choked her weak lungs. She coughed day and night, her joints swelling worse than ever. "Don't fuss over me," she'd say when we worried. "I got you out of that hell. That's enough for me." Even sick, she taught me city survival, how to ride the bus without getting shortchanged, spot troublemakers on street corners, stretch our pennies at the market's end when vendors slashed prices. While Mom worked, I cared for Grandma and hunted for jobs. At 13, with no real schooling or experience, doors slammed in my face. A scrawny country girl with patched clothes and a thick accent didn't exactly scream, "Hire me." 3 months in, we rented a tiny shack in a rough neighbourhood east of the city. It was small, but it was ours. No shared walls, no bathroom lines. Mum got promoted to cook at the house she cleaned, earning a bit more, bringing home better scraps. That's when we met Miss Ruby, our neighbour, a black woman in her 50s who sold sweet potato pies by the riverfront. She welcomed us with a plate of cheesy grits, and when she saw Grandma's state, she didn't hesitate. "This woman needs blackberry leaf tea with Tupelo honey," she said, fetching it from her place. It didn't cure Grandma, but it soothed her cough, gave her a moment's peace. Miss Ruby came by daily, bringing herbs, prayers and kindness. A part-time midwife, she swore by her remedies. "What doctors do with knives, I do with plants," she'd say, grinning. When I hinted at what happened back in Willow Creek, without spilling the darkest details, she gripped my hand. "Women ain't here to be men's punching bags. Your mum and Grandma did what needed doing, now you rebuild." She got me my first job, helping her sister's fruit stand at the farmer's market. It paid pennies, some coins, bruised peaches and bananas to take home, but it was something. I'd wake at 4 a.m, set up the stand and holler, "Fresh peaches, sweet bananas," until dusk, my feet throbbing but my pockets jingling. Every cent went into an old tobacco tin I hid under the mattress. "A woman's money stays secret, even from ants," Miss Ruby taught me. "You never know when you'll need to run or stand on your own." 6 months after we arrived, Grandma passed in her sleep one Sunday morning. It was quiet, peaceful, a mercy after all her pain. I woke to Mum's soft sobs beside Grandma's mat. Her face, free of those pain lines, said it all. We had no money for a coffin or funeral, but Miss Ruby rallied the neighbourhood. Washerwomen, maids, vendors, even a few working girls. They pitched in. One knew a guy at a funeral home for a cheap deal. Another had a cousin who dug graves. Someone brought backyard flowers and the eldest led prayers. Watching those women, most strangers, come together, I saw it. There's a power when women stand side by side, not in fists, but in quiet, shared strength. Grandma's death left an ache, but it also set us free. Her suffering had kept our pain alive in a way. After the funeral, it was like we could finally breathe, start living instead of just surviving. Mum decided it was time for me to go back to school. "You're not spending your life at a fruit stand," she said, fierce. "You're gonna learn. Be somebody." She enrolled me in a public school near our shack. At 14, I had to start in first grade, surrounded by kids half my age, but I didn't care. It was a new beginning, a chance to rewrite who I was. I was the tallest kid in class, barely squeezing into those tiny desks, my patched clothes and thick country accent, making me a target for giggles. But you know what? I didn't care. I was just thrilled to be there, clutching a fresh notebook, coloured pencils and storybooks that opened up worlds I'd never imagined. Mornings were for school, afternoons for the market, and nights for homework under the flicker of a kerosene lamp. I'd fall asleep over my book sometimes, and Mum would drape a blanket over me, turn off the lamp and kiss my forehead. Life started looking up. Mum landed a steady gig, cooking at a downtown diner, earning enough to get Sundays off. I flew through school, skipping grades like hurdles. My teacher called me a sponge soaking up everything. But that rainy night in Willow Creek still haunted me. Nightmares crept in when I let my guard down. I couldn't handle being alone with men, not even the kind old baker or the bus driver. At school I dodged boys like they were poison, trembling or feeling sick if they got too close. Once I even fainted in the hallway. The principal called Mom in, worried. "Emma's bright, hard-working, but something's off. She seems scared of men." Mum didn't spill the whole truth, just said my grandpa had been rough. That was enough to stop the questions. The principal sent me to Mrs. Nelson, the school counsellor, a woman in her 50s with dyed auburn hair in a tight bun and glasses perched on her nose. At first I sat in her office, silent, staring at the floor. "You don't have to talk," she'd say, her voice gentle. "Just sit, draw, look out the window." Slowly I warmed to her. I started with safe stuff, school, the market, our neighbourhood. Then I opened up about missing Grandma. One day it all poured out. What Grandpa did, how Mom and Grandma fought back, how he disappeared, why we fled to Savannah. Mrs. Nelson didn't flinch or pity me. She just listened, her eyes steady. When I was done, drained but lighter, she took my hands. "Emma, what happened was awful, and it'll always be part of you. But you're not alone. Your Mum and Grandma showed that. You can live a full, happy life without letting that monster eat you up inside." She gave me books, not just textbooks, but novels, poetry, stories of women who'd faced hell and kept going. She showed me the world was bigger than Willow Creek, bigger than Savannah, full of possibilities I hadn't dreamed of. "Turn your pain into strength," she'd say. "Build with it, don't let it tear you down." By 16, I was in middle school and ditched the market for a cashier job at a downtown drugstore. The owner, Mr. Alfred, a sweet old guy, noticed I was always reading medicine labels during slow moments. "Girl, you've got a knack for this," he'd say, teaching me the basics. How to sort meds, spot generics, explain simple doses to customers. I started to feel steady, like I wasn't just the scared girl who flinched when a man walked in. Then I met Mrs. Zoe, a classy woman in her 60s who came to the drugstore for blood pressure pills and vitamins. One day she caught me studying during a lull. "What's got you so focused, young lady?" "Science book, ma'am," I said. "I'm prepping for the high school entrance exam." She flipped through it, smiling. "You love learning, don't you? I can see it in your eyes." When I told her I wanted to be a nurse, she studied me. I was a teacher for years, now retired with too much time. "How about I help you study? No charge, just the joy of teaching someone eager." 3 nights a week after locking up the drugstore, I'd head to Mrs. Zoe's apartment in the historic district. It was like stepping into a library. Books stacked floor to ceiling, the air rich with coffee and butter cookies. She drilled me on math, English, science, everything for the exams. More than that, she taught me to see myself not as a victim, but a survivor. "The past is written," she'd say. "But the future, it's a blank page, Emma. You hold the pen." In 1969, at 17, I aced the entrance exam for Savannah High School, the best public school in the city. Mum cried when she heard, buying a little cake, a rare treat, and invited Miss Ruby, Mrs. Zoe, and Mr. Alfred to celebrate. "My girl's going to be somebody," she said, her voice thick with pride. "A nurse, helping others, earning respect we never had." That night, lying on our mat, I watched Mum sleep, her face still fierce even in rest. I thought of Grandma, finding strength to save me despite her pain. I thought of Miss Ruby, Mrs. Zoe, Mrs. Nelson, women who lifted me up without asking for anything back. That's when it hit me. Real strength isn't in fists or cruelty. It's in rising after you fall, reaching out to help others, turning pain into purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, more hurdles, more doubts, more scars to heal, but I had a direction. I'd become a healer, not with herbs like Miss Ruby or books like Mrs. Zoe, but with a nurse's care, understanding others' pain because I knew my own. The future was mine to write, and I was ready. Savannah High was a whole new world. Marble floors, walls lined with photos of fancy graduates, doctors, lawyers, teachers. I felt out of place, the cook's daughter from the wrong side of town, working at a drugstore to help pay bills. I sat in the back, kept quiet, scared my accent would make me a joke. I ate lunch alone in a corner of the courtyard, munching from the lunchbox Mum packed before dawn. But my biology teacher, Dr. Anderson, a kind man in his 50s with grey hair and a calm voice, saw something in me. After I aced a test, he stopped at my desk. "Emma, you've got a gift for science. Don't hide it in the back row." He lent me a book, Introduction to Human Anatomy, and I devoured it like a bestseller. The nervous system fascinated me, how it carried thoughts, feelings, memories. I wanted to understand why my brain still replayed that night, why I woke up sweating, why men's voices made me shake. With Dr. Anderson's encouragement, I started speaking up in class, answering questions, even tackling math problems on the board. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Some kids, especially a clique of rich girls, loved to mock me. "Look at the drugstore hillbilly, ready to prescribe aspirin," they'd snicker as I passed. At first I'd duck my head, swallowing tears, but I was learning to stand taller, to let their words slide off like rain on a tin roof. One day I'd had enough of being pushed around. In the middle of the school hallway, I turned to face Patricia, the ringleader of the clique, a doctor's daughter who thought she owned the world. "You want to know the difference between us, Patricia?" I said, my voice steady. "You were handed everything. I fight for every scrap. I'm proud to work at the drugstore, and I'll keep climbing while you stay Daddy's little princess." The hallway went dead quiet. Patricia's face burned. Anger, shame, who knows? She turned and stormed off. After that, the taunts stopped. We weren't friends, but I'd earned a grudging respect. In 1971, I finished my first year of high school with top grades. Mr. Alfred, my boss at the drugstore, saw my knack for pharmacy and started teaching me more. How to mix ointments, whip up cough syrups, blend herbal tinctures. I combined what I learned in school with Grandma's and Miss Ruby's folk remedies. Customers started asking for me by name, trusting my advice. Mum was over the moon, especially when she got promoted to head chef at the diner. With her better pay and fewer overtime hours, we moved to a one-bedroom apartment in Savannah's south side. An indoor bathroom, pure luxury, plus it was closer to school and work. That's when I met Charles, a third-year med student who came to the drugstore for supplies, gauze, alcohol, basic meds. At first I could barely meet his eyes. Men still made me jumpy, especially ones who seemed interested. But Charles was different, polite, respectful, always keeping his distance. He noticed my curiosity about medicine and started bringing me his old textbooks. "You know more than half my classmates," he said one day, impressed after I explained blood pressure meds to a customer. We started talking. Meds, diseases, treatments. He shared stories from his hospital internship. I told him about Grandma's and Miss Ruby's herbal tricks. Mum, wary of any guy near me, insisted on meeting him. She invited him for coffee one Sunday, setting out cornbread and her prized embroidered tablecloth. She watched him like a hawk. "I like him," she said after he left. "He's got respect in his eyes." From Mum, who'd learned to distrust men the hard way, that was gold. In 1972, I graduated high school, earning an honour roll diploma as the top student. Mum cried quietly from the audience, too proud to clap. Miss Ruby, Mrs. Zoe, Mr. Alfred, and even Charles showed up, bringing me flowers. It was a moment I'd never forget. Medical school felt like a pipe dream. Too expensive, too competitive. But nursing school, that was within reach. The university hospital offered an evening technical course, perfect since I could keep my drugstore job. I aced the entrance exam starting in March 1973 at 21, older than my classmates but armed with real-world experience. The course was brutal. Night classes, weekend internships, studying on buses and breaks. I didn't care. Every lesson brought me closer to being a nurse, to helping people in pain. In my second year, I interned in the gynecology and obstetrics ward, and that's where I found my calling. Caring for women, especially the vulnerable, felt like healing pieces of my younger self. One case hit hard. A 14-year-old girl, 7 months pregnant, arrived covered in bruises. Her husband, a man pushing 40, had bought her from her dad for a motorcycle and some cash. When she tried to run, he nearly killed her. Dr. Teresa, the ward's fierce doctor, was livid. She kicked the husband out, threatening to call the cops, and fought to protect the girl. I watched, amazed by her fire. After stabilizing the girl, Dr. Teresa called me to her office. "Emma, you've got something special," she said. "I saw how you calmed that girl when no one else could. That's not just skill, it's empathy, the kind you can't teach." She pushed me to focus on women who'd faced violence, guiding me with books and letting me shadow tough cases. It wasn't a formal specialty back then, but it became my mission. In 1975, I graduated with honours at 23 and landed a job in the hospital's gynecology ward. The pay wasn't great, but it came with benefits and stability. Mum and I bought a small South Side house, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a backyard, where she planted herbs like we had in Willow Creek. Charles graduated that year too, starting his paediatric residency. We grew closer, sharing dinners at our house, swapping stories about tough cases. One night, as I walked him to the gate, he took my hand. My instinct was to pull away, that old fear flaring up, but I stayed. "Can I ask you something, Emma?" he said, his voice soft under the starry December sky. "Why do you keep me at arm's length? Not just physically, a wall I can't get past." My heart pounded. In 5 years, I'd never told him about Willow Creek, about Grandpa, about that night. "It's a long story," I mumbled, looking away. "I've got time," he said. So, sitting on the low wall outside our house, I told him everything. The abuse, Mom and Grandma's fight, our escape, the scars I still carried. It was only the second time I'd opened that locked box, the first being with Mrs. Nelson. When I finished, I couldn't look at him, bracing for pity or disgust. He stayed quiet for what felt like forever, then gently took my hand. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "I'll never hurt you or push you. I just want to be here, at your pace." I broke down, crying for the girl I'd been, for the innocence stolen, for the years lost. Charles didn't try to hug me. He knew a touch could feel like too much. He just held my hand, respecting my space. That night changed us. It wasn't love right away, I wasn't ready, but the wall came down. I didn't have to hide my scars or pretend to be unbreakable. For the first time I felt seen, not as a victim, but as me. Time rolled on. I worked at the hospital. Charles pushed through residency. We grabbed cafeteria dinners after long shifts or walked Tybee Island's beach on rare days off. It was slow, messy progress. Some days I could hold his hand without flinching. Others, the thought of closeness sent me spiralling. Charles never pushed, always patient, always there. In 1977, after 2 years of a friendship that was more than just friends, but didn't quite have a name, Charles asked me to be his girlfriend. He'd finished his residency, landed a paediatrician job at my hospital, and showed up with daisies, my favourite, and a dinner invite to a cosy riverside restaurant. "No rush to answer," he said, his voice steady. "I know it's a big step." I didn't need time. For the first time, I was sure about a man. "Yes," I said, surprising us both, "but you'll need to be patient, really patient." He grinned, that calm smile of his. "Patience? I've got plenty. I waited 5 years just to hold your hand without you shaking. I'll wait as long as you need." Dating Charles was like healing in slow motion. Every small gesture, a kiss on the forehead, fingers laced together, a quick hug, was a victory over my past. Each wall I tore down wasn't for him. It was for me, a step toward freedom. Mum took a while to warm to the idea, not because she doubted Charles, she liked him from the start, but because she feared I'd get hurt again. "Men can turn, Emma," she'd warn when we were alone. Your grandpa wasn't always a monster. He was sweet to your grandma once. I'd touch my heart and say, Charles is different, Mum. I feel it here, and if he's not, you taught me to be strong. I'm not that scared girl from Willow Creek anymore. In 1978, we got engaged in a simple home ceremony with our closest friends, Miss Ruby, now old but still baking the best sweet potato pies, Mrs. Zoe, like a second mom, and Mr. Alfred, who closed the drugstore early to celebrate. Charles gave me a plain ring, all his new doctor salary could afford, but to me it was priceless, a symbol of my triumph over the past. That same year I started nursing school, thanks to a hospital scholarship Dr. Teresa pushed for. I studied mornings, worked afternoons, and it was gruelling, but every lesson gave me tools to help women like the girl I'd been. Life felt like it was finally coming together. A job I loved, studies, a fiancé, a cosy home, and Mom, healthy and proud. The scars were still there, but they didn't bleed anymore. They didn't define me. Then, in February 1979, fate threw a curveball. It was a scorching Savannah summer, and I was juggling nursing school, hospital shifts, and wedding plans for December. One Tuesday, after a brutal night in obstetrics with 3 tough deliveries, I found Mom on the porch, staring blankly, a crumpled letter in her hand. Her red eyes told me something was wrong. "It's from Brunswick," she said, handing me the paper. It was from Miss Clara, our old neighbour from that stormy night. She'd tracked us down through a nephew at Savannah's post office. The words hit like ice. Grandpa Henry was alive. "No way," I said, the letter slipping from my hands. "You said the creek." Mum's voice shook. "I thought he was gone. The rocks, the current, no one could survive that." But he had. Fishermen found him downstream, barely alive, and he'd spent months in a Jacksonville hospital clinging to life. The blow to his head left him with memory loss, slurred speech, and half his body paralysed. Worse, Miss Clara wrote, he'd hired someone to find us muttering our names, talking about settling accounts. The life we'd built felt like it was crumbling. That ghost from our past was back to haunt us. I told Charles that night, my hands trembling. I braced for him to pull away, to see our messy history as too much. Instead, he held my hands and said, "We'll handle this. No one's hurting you or your mum again." The next morning he brought his lawyer friend, Paul, who asked only the basics. Was there abuse? A threat to life? Was the response reasonable? "If he comes with accusations, you've got a strong case for self-defence," Paul said. "The tricky part is why you didn't go to the police." Mum's voice was sharp. Back then, in a place like that, the police would have blamed me, said I asked for it. Paul nodded. "Let's hope he's just a sick old man raving. If he shows up, call me." For weeks we lived on edge. Every knock, every stranger on the street had us jumping. Mom barely slept. I was back to nightmares, waking up drenched in sweat. Charles stayed over often, sleeping in the guest room to respect the times, his presence a quiet anchor. 2 months passed with no word, and we started to breathe easier, thinking it was a false alarm. Then, one April afternoon, I came home from school to find an old man at our gate, thin, leaning on a cane, his face drooping from paralysis. For a moment I didn't recognise him. Time and sickness had shrunk the monster of my nightmares. "Emma," he slurred, his voice thick, "my granddaughter." I froze, the world tilting. "What do you want?" I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "To talk," he said. "Just talk. Something. Maybe the safety of my own home, maybe needing to end this chapter, made me open the gate." We sat on the porch, me in a chair, him on a bench, far enough to bolt if needed. He looked like he could barely stand. "I thought you died in the creek," I said, breaking the silence. "Almost did," he mumbled, rubbing his cane. "Lost a lot that night. Memory, strength, everything." "Why are you here? To threaten us? Report us? If so, leave. We're not scared." He shook his head, slow and tired. I came to ask forgiveness. The word hit me like a slap. Forgiveness? After everything? You think sorry fixes what you did? I snapped. The hell you put me, Mom and Grandma through. No, he said, eyes on the ground. Nothing fixes it. I know. Then why come? I'm dying, he coughed, the sound raw. Lung cancer, months left, I had to say it. I stared at him, expecting rage, but all I felt was pity mixed with cold indifference. He had no power over me anymore, just a dying man with regrets too late to matter. I can't forgive you, I said. That's not mine to give. The girl you hurt that night, she's gone. You killed her. He nodded, accepting it. I don't deserve peace. I just needed you to know I see the monster I was. Silence stretched between us, the sunset painting the porch orange, the smell of Mum's cooking drifting out, unaware of who sat outside. Mum can't see you, I said. It'd break her. I came for you, he replied, struggling to stand, not her. I walked him to the gate, keeping my distance like escorting a stranger out. He turned, his voice a whisper. You look like your grandma. She was always stronger than me. Then he shuffled away, a frail shadow disappearing around the corner. I didn't tell Mum. He didn't deserve to disrupt her peace. But I told Charles, who held me as I cried, not from pain but from relief, a wound finally closing. 3 months later, we heard he'd died alone in a Jacksonville charity hospital, no one by his side. May God have mercy on his soul, Mum said when she found out, her voice flat. Because I can't. Life moved forward. In June 1982, at 30, I graduated nursing school, a moment of pure pride. The daughter of a cook, granddaughter of a mill worker, now a nurse. Mum sobbed through the ceremony, clutching Charles's hand like he was family. We married that December at St. John's Episcopal Church in Savannah, simple but perfect. I, who thought I'd never trust a man, took a leap I once believed impossible. Marriage wasn't easy. Intimacy stirred old fears, but Charles's patience never wavered. In 1984, our daughter Ellen arrived, named for Grandma, who'd found the strength to save me. In 1986, our son Peter completed our family. I kept working at the hospital, helping start a centre for women and children survivors of sexual violence. Groundbreaking work when victims were still often blamed. My pain became a tool to heal others. Mum lived with us, raising her grandkids, finally knowing peace. She passed in 1998 at 72, a stroke taking her quietly. Her strength, her dignity, never faded. Ellen grew up to be a doctor like her dad. Peter became a lawyer, defending women like me. I told them my story, no secrets in our family, so they'd know the value of respect and dignity from the start. Charles and I grew old together, watching grandkids arrive, building a life rich with love despite its scarred start. He retired in 2005. I followed a few years later when age slowed me down. Now, at 75, I face my final challenge, pancreatic cancer, the same disease that took Grandpa Henry. Funny how fate ties loose ends. But unlike him, I'm not alone. I have Charles, my kids, my grandkids, and a clear conscience. I turned pain into purpose, trauma into strength to help others. I'm sharing this story not for pity or praise, but for the women and girls out there, maybe watching right now, trapped in the same hell I was, thinking there's no way out, that they're to blame. To you, I say, there is a way. There's a fresh start, a healing, not perfect, but enough to build a life full of dignity and joy. It's not easy or quick. It's a long road, sometimes a lifetime, but it's possible. I'm proof. As I prepare to leave this world, I know I bloomed in a field of thorns, turning poison into medicine. That scared girl from Willow Creek, who arrived in Savannah with nothing but scars, became a woman, a mother, a nurse, a person who made a difference. If this story touched you, drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe to our Grandparents' Tales channel. Every like, every new follower is a spark for other women to share their stories, to break the silence that shields abusers and blames victims. My time's almost up, but I leave with a sense of mission done. My scars fueled something bigger, to show you can bloom